The Galactic Naval Academy orbited the twin suns of Kepler, 442, its crystalline spires gleaming like broken glass against the void. Commander Zaxxon Vex watched the human cadets through the observation deck, his four eyes narrowing with practiced disdain. Humans, the galaxy's newest addition to the Confederation, and by far its most unpredictable species. Look at them, Vex hissed to his aide, Lieutenant Krill, walking around like they own the station. Pathetic bipeds with their soft skin and fragile bones. How did such weaklings ever reach the stars? Krill's tentacles writhed nervously. Sir, the humans have shown remarkable adaptability in combat simulations. Perhaps we shouldn't. Silence. Vex's mandibles clicked sharply. I've seen their kind before. All bluster, no substance. Watch me break their spirit. Below in the training bay, Cadet Kira Nightingale moved through her combat sequences with fluid precision. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, revealing a scar that ran from her left temple to her jaw. A memento from the Proxima raids, where she'd lost everything that mattered. Nice form, Nightingale, called out Cadet Thorne Vasquez, wiping sweat from his brow. The stocky young man had become her closest friend at the academy, one of the few who understood the weight she carried. But you're holding back again. Kira lowered her plasma rifle, her green eyes distant. Some fights aren't worth winning, Thorne. Bullshit, Thorne grinned, that same cocky smile that had gotten him into trouble since day one. Every fight's worth winning, if you're fighting for the right reasons. Their conversation was interrupted by the harsh chime of the Academy's announcement system. Commander Vex's voice echoed to the training bay, dripping with condescension. All human cadets report to Combat Arena 7 for mandatory species evaluation. Immediately, Kira and Thorne exchanged glances. Mandatory species evaluation wasn't on any schedule they'd seen. This feels like a trap, Kira muttered, checking her sidearm out of habit. Probably, Thorne shrugged. But what choice do we have? Come on, let's see what our beloved commander wants now. Combat Arena 7 was the largest training facility on the station, designed to accommodate multiple species and their various physiologies. When the human cadets arrived, they found themselves facing not just Commander Vex, but a full contingent of senior officers from across the Confederation. The humans have arrived, Vex announced, his voice carrying easily across the arena. How prompt? Today, we're going to conduct a little experiment. You see, there's been considerable debate about whether your species truly belongs among the stars. Cadet Jenna Cross, the unofficial leader of their group, stepped forward. Sir, with respect, our academic and combat scores speak for themselves. Vex's laugh was like glass scraping metal. Scores? Oh, my dear Primitive, scores can be manipulated. What we need is a real test. A demonstration of your species' true nature when faced with adversity. The arena's lights dimmed and training barriers rose on the floor, creating a maze-like environment. Automated defense turrets emerged from hidden alcoves, their targeting systems already painting red dots across the human cadets. The rules are simple, Vex continued, his four eyes gleaming with malicious delight. Survive for 10 minutes. Show us this famous human adaptability we've heard so much about. Of course, these turrets are set to full power, not training mode. Lieutenant Krill's tentacles went rigid. Commander, regulations strictly forbid. Regulations? Vex waved a dismissive claw, are for species that have earned their place. These humans need to prove they're more than just clever apes with delusions of grandeur. Kira felt a familiar coldness settle over her, the same icy calm that kept her alive during the Proxima raids. Around her, the other cadets were spreading out, taking cover behind the barriers. But she noticed something else, something that made her blood run colder than space itself. The turrets weren't just tracking randomly. They were specifically targeting Thorne. Son of a bitch, she whispered, understanding flooding through her. This wasn't a test. This was an execution, dressed up as training. And Thorne, with his outspoken criticism of Confederation politics, had painted a target on his back. The countdown began. 10 seconds. Kira tried to reach Thorne, but he was already moving, diving for cover as the first energy bolts lit up the arena. 5 seconds. She screamed his name, but the sound was lost in the chaos of weapons fire. 0. The turrets opened fire with devastating precision. Energy bolts filled the air like deadly lightning, and the human cadets scattered like leaves in a hurricane. But Kira's worst fears were confirmed within seconds. Every turret in Thorne's sector had him locked on, tracking his movements with inhuman accuracy. "It's rigged!" Jenna shouted from behind a barrier that was already showing scorch marks. "The targeting protocols are compromised." Thorne was good. Hell, he was better than good. He moved like liquid shadow, using every piece of cover, every trick he'd learned in their months of training. But there were too many angles, too many weapons, and they all wanted him dead. Kira watched in horror as a bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Another grazed his thigh. He stumbled, lost his rhythm for just a split second. That was all it took. 3 energy bolts converged on his position simultaneously. The first took him in the chest, lifted him off his feet. The second caught him in the head as he fell. The third was just cruel overkill. Thorne Vasquez crumpled to the arena floor, his body smoking from the impacts. The smell of burned flesh and ozone filled the air. The turrets stopped firing. Silence fell over Combat Arena 7 like a funeral shroud. Commander Vex's voice broke the quiet, and Kira could hear the satisfaction in his words. Well, that was educational. It appears human durability is somewhat overstated. Clean up this mess, and he never finished the sentence. Because Kira Nightingale was moving, not toward cover, not toward an exit, toward the turret control station, where Vex stood with his officers, all of them congratulating themselves on their successful murder. Her plasma rifle was in her hands, though she didn't remember drawing it. Her finger found the trigger, like it was coming home. The first shot took out the primary turret controller. Sparks showered the observation deck as automated systems began shrieking warnings. The second shot took out the emergency lockdown controls. The third shot was for the communications array. Lockdown protocols activated. The station's AI announced cheerfully, "Combat Arena 7 is now sealed. No entry or exit permitted during emergency conditions." Vex and his officers suddenly realized they were trapped in an arena with a human who had just watched her best friend get murdered. And that human was armed, angry, and apparently had intimate knowledge of the station's security systems. Cadet Nightingale. Vex's voice cracked slightly. "Stand down immediately. That's a direct order." Kira's laugh was nothing like Thorne's warm chuckle. It was cold as space, sharp as a blade, and filled with promises of violence. "Orders?" she said, her voice carrying clearly across the arena. "From the officer who just murdered my friend? I don't think so, Commander." She began walking toward the observation deck, her rifle held at ready position. The other human cadets watched in stunned silence. None of them moved to stop her. "Security." Vex screamed into his comm unit, only to be rewarded with static. "Security to Combat Arena 7. "Sorry, Commander," Kira called out, not breaking stride. "I may have mentioned I destroyed the communications array. Also, the lockdown means no one's getting in here for about, 23 minutes, give or take." Vex's 4 eyes went wide with the dawning realization of his situation. The other senior officers were backing away from the human cadet, their various appendages trembling with fear. "You can't do this." Lieutenant Krill stammered. "We're senior officers of the Confederation. There are protocols, procedures." Kira reached the base of the observation deck and began climbing the access ladder with methodical precision. "Protocols?" she repeated, her voice conversational. "Like the protocol that says training exercises shouldn't use live ammunition, or the procedure that requires safety observers during combat scenarios." Each rung brought her closer to the trapped officers. Each step was accompanied by the metallic click of her boots on the ladder. "You want to know what protocol I'm following right now?" she continued, reaching the observation deck. "It's called the Human Protocol. Article 1. You hurt one of ours, we hurt you back. Article 2. We hurt you back worse." Commander Vex drew his sidearm, his claws shaking. "Stay back. I'm warning you." Kira paused, tilting her head like a curious predator. You're warning me? That's precious. Tell me, Commander, when you were programming those turrets to murder Thorne, did you warn him? Vex fired. The energy bolt went wide, scorching the wall behind Kira. She didn't even flinch. Poor shot, she observed clinically. Thorne would have laughed at that. But then again, Thorne won't be laughing at anything anymore, will he? What happened next took exactly 23 seconds. 23 seconds of violence so swift and brutal that the security cameras would later require advanced analysis to follow the action. 23 seconds that would fundamentally change how the galaxy viewed humanity. 23 seconds that began with Kira Nightingale, armed cadet seeking justice for her murder friend, and ended with something else entirely. When the lockdown finally lifted and security forces breached Combat Arena 7, they found the surviving officers huddled in a corner, catatonic with shock. Lieutenant Krill would never speak coherently again. They found the other human cadets still standing where the shooting had started, their faces pale, but their eyes hard as diamond. And they found Kira Nightingale walking calmly toward the exit, her uniform soaked in purple blood, carrying Commander Vex's severed head by what remained of his cranial ridges. She stopped at the entrance, turned to face the security team, and smiled. It was Thorne's smile, warm and cocky, and completely terrifying in that moment. The human protocol, she said pleasantly, has been successfully implemented. Please note in your reports that future compliance with actual regulations would be appreciated. She set the head down gently, almost reverently, and walked past the stunned security officers like she was heading to lunch. Behind her, Combat Arena 7 looked like a slaughterhouse. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about humanity, a lesson written in purple blood and measured in exactly 23 seconds. Some species were prey, some were predators, and some, when pushed too far, became something else entirely, something that remembered every slight, every injustice, every friend who died for another species' entertainment, something that would smile while it killed you, something human. Hashtag they shot the human cadet. The news traveled faster than light across the Confederation networks. Within hours, every species from the crystalline Zephyrians to the gas-dwelling nebuloids had heard the same impossible story. A human cadet had single-handedly slaughtered a command staff of senior officers with nothing but training weapons and 23 seconds of pure, concentrated fury. Admiral Korvash Drenthek, Supreme Commander Confederation Naval Forces, stared at the security footage for the 15th time. His scaled hide rippled with involuntary shivers as he watched Kira Nightingale systematically dismantle beings twice her size and 3 times her age. "Pause it there," he commanded his aide, pointing a clawed finger at the screen. "How is she moving that fast?" Captain Yilner Hest, the Zephyrian intelligence officer, consulted her crystalline data pad. Preliminary analysis suggests extreme adrenal response combined with what humans call muscle memory. Her movements show patterns consistent with extensive combat experience. Combat experience? Drenthek's voice rose an octave. "She's a cadet, first-year student." "Not quite accurate, Admiral." Hest's harmonics took on a warning tone. Cross-referencing her records with recent human conflicts shows Cadet Nightingale survived the Proxima Centauri raids. She was there when the hegemony glassed 3 human colonies. The temperature in the command center seemed to drop several degrees. The Proxima raids were legendary, even among species accustomed to warfare. Civilian populations had held off trained military forces for weeks using nothing but improvised weapons and sheer bloody-minded determination. "Sweet void," whispered communications officer Trilocks, his tentacles pale with fear. "We've been training survivors." "Not cadets. Survivors." Meanwhile, in the detention block of Kepler Station, Kira sat in her cell with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap like she was attending a dinner party. The interrogation had been going on for 6 hours. She hadn't said a word. Chief Inspector Valdris Kreen, a veteran investigator from the moth-like Lepidopter species, fluttered his wings in frustration. "Cadet Nightingale, your continued silence only makes this worse. We have footage. We have witnesses. We know what you did." Kira's green eyes fixed on him with unnerving intensity. When she finally spoke, her voice was conversational, almost friendly. "Do you have children, Inspector?" The question caught him off guard. What does that have to do with? Simple question. Do you have children? Kreen's antennae twitched nervously. Yes, 3 larvae in their second molt. I had a little brother, Kira said, her tone never changing. Marcus, 8 years old. He collected rocks from different planets. Had this whole display case in his room, organized by mineral composition and origin point. She paused, studying her hands. The hegemony burned him alive, made me watch. The silence that followed was deafening. Thorne reminded me of Marcus, sometimes. Same curiosity about the universe. Same stupid, infectious laugh. Now she looked up, and Kreen took an involuntary step backward. So when you ask me about what I did to Commander Vex, understand that I'm being merciful by not doing it to every officer who stood there and watched my friend get murdered for sport. Before Kreen could respond, the detention block's alarm began blaring. Emergency lights bathed everything in harsh red, and the station's AI announced with mechanical comm. All personnel to evacuation stations. Incoming hegemony fleet detected. This is not a drill. Kira's smile could have frozen helium. Well, looks like the neighborhood just got more interesting. 3 hours earlier, the Hegemony War Council had received their own intelligence reports about the incident at the Naval Academy. Unlike the Confederation's horror, their reaction was quite different. War Prime Zandak Brutus, supreme military commander of the Hegemony forces, studied the tactical breakdown with professional interest. The pale, elongated humanoid reviewed each moment of Kira's 23-second rampage with the appreciation of a master craftsman examining perfect work. Fascinating, he mused to his subordinates. Look at the precision. No wasted motion. No hesitation. This human doesn't just kill efficiently. She kills artistically. Sub-Commander Vash, a scarred veteran of dozens of campaigns, leaned forward. Sir, our intelligence suggests this was an isolated incident. Emotional response to seeing a friend killed. Isolated. Brutus laughed, a sound like breaking bones. My dear Vash, you're thinking like prey. This wasn't emotional. This was calculated. Watch again. The footage played in slow motion. Kira's approach to the observation deck. Her systematic destruction of communications and security systems. The methodical way she cornered each officer. She disabled their escape routes first. Brutus pointed out. Then she eliminated their ability to call for help. Only then did she begin the actual killing. This human planned every second of that massacre while walking across an arena floor. He stood, his pale form towering over the war table. Gentlemen, we've been approaching the human problem incorrectly. We've been treating them like just another prey species. But look at this footage. Really look. This is what we've been trying to breed in our own warriors for centuries. The implications hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Sir, Vash ventured carefully. Are you suggesting we should recruit them? I'm suggesting, Brutus replied, that we should test them. If the humans truly have this capacity for control violence, they could be valuable allies. If not, he shrugged elegantly, then we'll know for certain they need to be eliminated before they become a real threat, which brought them to the present moment, as Hegemony battle cruisers dropped out of hyperspace around Kepler Station with all the subtlety of a collapsing star. In the detention block, alarms continued their harsh symphony. Inspector Kreen was speaking rapidly into his communicator, trying to coordinate evacuations while keeping one compound eye on his prisoner. All civilian personnel to emergency pods. Military personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Kira stood up slowly, brushing imaginary dust from her detention uniform. Inspector, I believe our conversation is about to become irrelevant. Sit down. Kreen ordered, his weapon trained on her. You're still under arrest for. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in dim red light. In that moment of darkness, Kira moved. When the lights returned, Inspector Kreen was unconscious on the floor, and his weapon was in Kira's hand. She examined it briefly, found the power setting, and adjusted it to maximum charge. "Sorry, Inspector," she said to his unconscious form, "but the galaxy is about to get its second demonstration of human capabilities. I prefer participate rather than watch from a cell." The corridor outside the detention block was chaos. Personnel of a dozen different species were running in every direction, their various forms of panic creating a symphony of fear. Kira moved through them like a shark through schools of fish, invisible in the confusion. She made her way to the armory, where her intimate knowledge of station layouts served her well. The weapons locker was secured, but training had taught her that security systems became remarkably flexible during emergency situations. 5 minutes later, she was armed with enough hardware to level a city block. Admiral Drenthek's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "This is Admiral Drenthek to Hegemony Forces. You are in violation of Confederation space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came in the form of plasma torpedoes that lit up the station's shields like a festival display. Kira made her way to Combat Arena 7, where this whole mess had started. The arena was empty now, still showing scorch marks from the earlier violence, but had something she needed: direct access to the station's defensive grid. She settled in at the gunnery control station, her fingers dancing across controls designed for species with tentacles and additional appendages. Human adaptability at its finest. The first Hegemony boarding shuttles were already attaching to the station's outer hull when Kira brought the internal defense turrets online. The same turrets that had murdered Thorne were now under her direct control. "Attention Hegemony boarding parties," she announced over the internal communication system, her voice echoing through every corridor. "This is Cadet Kira Nightingale, Human Defense Force. You have 10 seconds to return to your shuttles before I demonstrate why your species should have left us alone." The countdown began automatically. 10 seconds. Kira watched the boarding party locations on her tactical display, memorizing positions and calculating angles. 5 seconds. She thought about Thorne's laugh, about Marcus's rock collection, about every human who had died because other species saw them as weak. 0. The turrets opened fire. But this time, they were operated by someone who understood every nuance of their targeting systems, every weakness in their coverage patterns. This time, they were wielded by someone who had spent months learning the station's layout while planning for exactly this kind of scenario. This time, they were in the hands of a human who had already decided that mercy was a luxury the galaxy couldn't afford. The Hegemony boarding parties lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. War Prime Brutus, monitoring the assault from his command ship, watched his elite forces get systematically annihilated by a single human operating defensive systems designed for an entire security team. "Magnificent," he breathed, genuine admiration in his voice. "Absolutely magnificent." Subcommander Vash stared at the tactical display in horror. "Sir, we're losing entire squads every few seconds. This human is exactly what we hope to find," Brutus finished. "Signal to retreat. We have what we came for." "Sir, information, Vash. Beautiful, terrible information about what humanity is truly capable of." Brutus studied the readouts showing his force's destruction. "This changes everything." As the Hegemony fleet withdrew, Kira sat back in the gunnery chair, surveying her work. The station was safe. The immediate threat was over. But she knew this was just the beginning. Around the galaxy, species that had dismissed humanity as primitives were suddenly reconsidering their assumptions. The footage from Combat Arena 7 had been troubling. The defense of Kepler Station was terrifying. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in a language every species understood. Overwhelming, efficient violence. Admiral Drenthek found her there an hour later, still sitting at the gunnery controls like she belonged there. His security escort kept their weapons drawn, but didn't point them directly at her. After what they'd witnessed, none of them were quite sure what good their weapons would do anyway. "Cadet Nightingale," Drenthek said carefully, "the charges against you are being reviewed." Kira turned in her chair, that same pleasant smile on her lips. "Reviewed? How diplomatic. The Confederation Council wants to meet with you. There are questions about human military doctrine, about your species' approach to conflict resolution. Our approach..." Kira stood, stretching like she'd just finished a pleasant afternoon nap. It's quite simple, Admiral. We remember our friends. We remember our enemies. And we make sure everyone else remembers the difference. She walked past him toward the exit, then paused at the threshold. Oh, and Admiral, you might want to update your training protocols. Clearly, the current system has some explosive flaws. As she left, Admiral Drenthek realized something that would keep him awake for many nights to come. Humanity hadn't just joined the Confederation. They had infiltrated it, learned its systems, identified its weaknesses, and now they had demonstrated exactly what they could do with that knowledge. 23 seconds had changed everything. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. But more importantly, humanity would never again have to prove they belonged among the stars. They had written their credentials in purple blood and measured their worth in exactly 23 seconds of control fury. The message was clear. Humans remembered everything, and they were very, very good at teaching lessons to those who forgot that simple fact.